Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Fran, I'm from Venezuela, and today we are going to be watching a video called 6 American Things That Are Actually British. Super excited to see this. So comment, like, subscribe, and start.
And I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to things and stuff. Specifically, things and stuff you always thought were American, but were in fact conceived in Britain. And to all of the good people out there, plus my wife's cousin Chad, who think I suddenly have an agenda against America, that is nonsense.
An agenda.
Because in my next YouTube long, I'll be shocking the world again with 6 British things that are actually American. See? I don't like any of you. That's not true. Please don't unsubscribe. So often in life we encounter things and stuff without ever contemplating what their origin story is. But because I didn't grow up in the United States, I've developed a certain curiosity for American things and stuff since moving here 15 years ago. To the extent that since I started this channel, I've probably learned more facts about America than I have Britain. But also that those American facts are sometimes British ones in disguise. And so, if you're intrigued by this and somehow haven't yet subscribed, do that now.
I'm guessing it's going to be a lot of overlap. Of course, they're like two cultures that are quite similar.
Here are 6 American things that are actually British.
Steak sauce.
Here in the Midwest, I quickly learned that the single most popular food after corn is meat and potatoes, which I've just realised is 2 separate things. But something else that's popular on this side of the pond is sauce to go with your meat. In addition to ketchup and barbecue, I often encounter one bottle that initially appeared the very definition of American patriotism. It was red, white and blue. The letter A obviously stood for America, and number 1 must have been shorthand for greatest country in the world. Quite honestly, few things more visibly screamed welcome to America than A1 steak sauce. I thought a bald eagle was going to burst out. But here's the thing, any bald eagle worth its salt would know that A1 steak sauce actually originated in England.
Well,
wait,
yeah,
Lawrence,
that's
did
weird.
you just say that A1 originated in
I think
England?
it's
yes,
maybe
Lawrence,
because it has like
very
a
much in
soy
addition to the road
Worcestershire
of the
sauce.
same
I don't know what
name.
A1
Its
sauce
origins can be
has.
traced precisely to a small modest home in London called Buckingham Palace. That's right, it was a building recognised the world over in which a chef by the name of Henderson William Brand unveiled the original sauce to none other than King George IV.
Yeah.
Now, as an aside, in Ireland last year, I personally bore witness to that monarch's footprints. They were quite small. The sauce went on commercial sale in 1831 under the ownership of Brand's company, Brand & Co. However, by 1871, the brand was under different ownership, and at this time it acquired the name A1. Contrary to popular belief, the name has nothing to do with the king exclaiming A1 as in magnificent. Instead, it was inspired by an insurance standard at Lloyd's of London that denoted a good ship. As its popularity grew, so did its distribution. By 1906, it was sold in the United States, where it would later acquire the name A1 steak
Yeah, I think that became popular like in the 50s or 60s.
By the late 1970s, amid overwhelming competition from HP sauce and Daddy's brown sauce, A1 all but disappeared from UK shelves. When I first moved to the United States, it just happened to be at a time when my wife's sister was graduating from what Americans refer to as college. As a new immigrant, I had way less agency back then, and I was forced to attend her graduation. I was happy to be there. In addition to chucking their graduate caps in the air and seemingly having no limitation on the number of family they could invite, American students would form a procession to a very familiar piece of music. Often known here as either Pomp and Circumstance or the Graduation March, its melody was identical to what we in Britain know as Land of Hope and Glory. Of course, I was personally gutted that the music did not herald the arrival of Randy Macho Man Savage, himself synonymous with the tune. But even the greatest of American wrestlers couldn't change the fact that this music is very, 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 very English. It was composed by Sir Edward Elgar as part of his Pomp and Circumstance marches, hence why Americans call it Pomp and Circumstance. But it wasn't written with graduations in mind, or WrestleMania 7. In fact, it wasn't written with much in mind at all until Edward VII, who had medium-sized feet, suggested it be part of his coronation ode with words and everything. After that, it generally became a patriotic English tune, to the extent that people often consider it a stronger candidate for our national anthem than God Save the King, itself repackaged in America as My Country 'Tis of Thee. So how did a perceived symbol of English exceptionalism become America's de facto graduation
Yeah, how did it end up in graduation?
That too was the work of Mr. Mustache himself, Edward Elgar. In
He wanted to sell
1905,
his
after
piece of
receiving
music.
an honorary doctorate from Yale University, Elgar performed a selection of his own works at the ceremony, including Pomp and Circumstance March No. 1.
And people loved
It was
it.
so well received that the music reached other universities and a tradition was born.
Yeah, people loved it so much.
Well,
They were
it's
like, we have
almost
to have
that
this
time
in
of year
every
again. In fact, on
graduation.
nearby porches, I've been seeing plastic dead people for the better
Okay,
part of the
Halloween, I
month.
know it's a thing
So I
that
figured I
also
might as well
is in
get
other
in on the
cultures.
act. You see,
Yes,
in the
pumpkin
United
mask.
States, Halloween has long felt like a much larger deal than it did in Britain.
Yeah, but I know
it is
it's-
America's enthusiasm for the occasion,
yeah,
in
but
fact,
it-
that leads
it's-
many of us to think of it as American.
I think it
This
was in
feeling
other
is strengthened
cultures.
further by the fact that many modern US Halloween traditions have spread to other
Yeah,
countries.
it's true,
it
but
was
now
two
the
of those
modern
other countries
modernity
that brought
is
Halloween
everywhere.
to the
But
United States in the first place. Ireland.
Yeah, I
and
think it comes
Scotland.
from, like,
You see, the
yeah.
origins of Halloween are very often linked
Pagan
to the Gaelic
origins.
festival Samhain, which is not pronounced Samhain, but knowing
Yeah,
my luck,
Samhain?
probably isn't pronounced Samhain either.
Oh,
Starting
Samhain.
in the 9th
Don't- no idea how that's
century, it would be
pronounced.
observed in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man from October 31st to November 1st, with Samhain also the Irish language name for November. The holiday
Oh,
has seen
so
all
it's actually
sorts of
just-
twists
yeah.
and turns since then, but in the interest of time, let's skip forward by 1,000 years. For it was during the 18th and 19th centuries that something happened to bring Halloween to a young United States.
Yeah, how
Mass
come it
Irish and
arrived?
Scottish immigration. And before Uncle Toby
Oh.
chimes in with, didn't English colonists recognise All Hallows Eve before then? Yes, to some degree, but any such celebrations were likely muted owing to puritanical opposition. The Scots
yeah,
and the
of
Irish
course.
brought with them several traditions that would eventually catch
That's
on in the United
pretty-
States, including jack-o'-lanterns. Historically, these would have been made with turnips. However, immigrants in America
Turnips?
soon realised that
And
native
then
pumpkin
pumpkins are
presented a
better.
softer and larger surface on which to carve
Pumpkins are
a
better.
face. And speaking of large things
How did
with
it carve
cracks in them,
turnips?
that brings us on to this.
Liberty
When you
Bell?
think of the United States, you think of three words. Freedom, freedom, and freedom, and often in that exact order. And you don't have to live here to realise the
Live
extent
the land
of
of the
its
freedom
freedom
and
is
the
precisely
free.
the rallying cry of so many of its symbols. You've got the Statue of Liberty, the Freedom Tower, Independence Hall. A short walk from that last one, you'll find the Liberty Bell. And just as Lady Liberty was constructed across
Oh, yeah,
the
in
pond,
France,
the same
yeah.
is true of this £2,000 instrument, something I discovered before visiting
it was sort of built
Granted, the
in
idea of
UK, I
navigating
think.
tight security just to see a slightly damaged symbol of America's independence from the British
Yeah,
might not sound
it's
like every
broken.
Brit's cup of tea, but I had an obscurely sentimental reason for doing so. You see, in the irony to end all ironies, the Liberty Bell was cast not in Philadelphia, but London, specifically at the Whitechapel Bell Foundry. Now, in case
I
you
have to say
didn't
that's-
know,
the irony
Whitechapel was also
is
the
not lost
setting of
on
my
me.
last English address before moving
Oh,
to
you lived in
America. In
Whitechapel.
fact, I lived half
That's
a
London,
mile
I
from where
think.
both Big Ben and the Liberty Bell were made. So that just leaves one
interesting.
question. Why wasn't it cast in the United States?
Yeah.
Surely having it commissioned to the country from which you've just gained your independence is completely and utterly a
It's
little
weird.
bit weird. And that would be true were it not for one thing. The Liberty
What?
Bell was delivered a good 24 years before the Revolutionary War. In fact, it was ordered by the city to commemorate the 50th
He has a
anniversary of
t-shirt
the
with
Charter
Abraham
of
Lincoln.
Privileges, a constitution that granted powers to the British colonists in Pennsylvania. The charter's chief architect was William Penn, himself an Englishman who founded the province of Pennsylvania. But not all would go smoothly. Famously, of course, the bell cracked during
Yeah.
its first test in Philadelphia, making us, the British, look like idiots. And after the Revolution, it completed its heel turn by ringing during the reading of the Declaration of Independence, allegedly. Which makes you wonder, is that when somebody first uttered the phrase, "Let freedom ring"? No, that phrase is first attributed to the song, "My Country 'Tis of Thee."
Oh, I was going to think
In
like
the
that
US,
must be
when
like a
something
very
is
old phrase.
considered uniquely American, you
As
might hear the
American as
phrase,
apple
"It's
pie."
as American as apple pie."
Yes.
But having looked deeper into this, I can't help but feel that such a proclamation might come as a shock to apple pies.
I can't
And
believe
that's
it's not
because for
American.
centuries, they graced several European countries before arriving in the New World. Chief among these was the place of their origin,
It makes-
England.
yeah,
in
it
fact,
makes
a
sense if you
recipe
think
for
about
apple
it, I
pies
guess.
can be found in an English cookbook all the way back in the 1300s when our language was still still complete gibberish. As you've probably guessed, they were brought to North America by colonists in the 17th century. What you might not know is that that same sentence can also be applied to apple trees, which did not exist in America before that time. But
I was going to say, yes, because I think apples are pretty, European.
In a newly independent United States. In 1796, a recipe for apple pie was featured in America's first cookbook, American Cookery by Amelia Simmons. Thereafter, it would become a symbol of American prosperity. In fact, to this day, it is famously eaten on the 4th of July when Americans come together to celebrate their independence from the very country that gave them apple pie in the first place. And you begin to wonder whether this might have been by design, especially since they repeated the trick with another pie on another holiday.
What pie?
That's right, pumpkin pie, a dessert widely associated with America's Thanksgiving, was first conceived in England. And
they brought it, like the Pilgrims brought it?
Us that Britain didn't even have pumpkins until receiving them from North America. Yes, I did, but just as America sent a jazzed up version of Halloween back to Europe, we did the same to you with pumpkins. Sort of. You see, if you give my homeland anything that might conceivably fit inside a pie, we will find a way to make that happen. And so it was with pumpkin, or as it was known in 17th century England, Pompion, as recorded in Shakespeare's Merry Wives of Windsor. And yes, I did just mentally rename the graduation march Pompion Circumstance.
Everyone takes
one of the earliest known recipes for Pompion pie can be found in the English cookbook The Gentlewoman's Companion by Hannah Woolley. Published in 1675, it called for alternating layers of pumpkin and apple, spiced rosemary, sweet marjoram, and a handful of thyme. So
you know what? That looks
from the custard-based
but I want to try that.
Nonetheless, variations on this pie were enjoyed by English colonists after arriving in North America in the 50 years prior. According to historical record, it would evolve into what we know today during the 18th century, when it too is featured in Amelia Simmons' American Cookery. Of course, even though each entry on this list had its origins in Britain and Ireland, it doesn't mean they're not a valued part of my American experience. That spot is reserved for peeps. Next week, I'll be enriching your lives even more with 6 British things that are actually American, so stay
enriching your life.
Thank you to my ponderers with whom I often discuss these sorts of things on my secret live streams. If you would like to become a ponderer and support the work I do, join me at patreon.com/lostinthepond or by clicking the join button below. Until the next video, goodbye.
Okay, so I have to say, things that shocks me. I would say probably the one, I wouldn't say like shocked, but like if you think about it, like the more I think about it, the more sense they have. Like for instance, like the apple pie. You know, you think, of course, you know, apple pie is something very American. It's like you think of like as American as an apple pie, yes. But if you think about it, like let's really think about this. It makes sense for it to be a UK thing, and I would guess even more like a European thing, because apples didn't exist in America. Like those are not apples, they don't exist. Now they do, but they didn't really exist in America up until a certain point in time, because they brought, you know, there was, when America was discovered, obviously there was a trade of goods. So a lot of things from Europe came to America and vice versa. So of course, you know, yeah, they brought apples, but before that, people like ate apples, I'm guessing. So why, like, of course they're gonna have like apple pie. I think throughout history, humans are gonna always like, he said like it's a UK thing that they're always gonna find, like, if you can stuff something and make pie with it, like you're gonna do it. Like, yes, but I think of like humans are always looking for something like that's very like sweet and savory. So of course they're gonna have like some version of apple pie. Especially like back in the day where I'm guessing people didn't really have like that many choices. So if you have a fruit that tastes good or reasonably good, like you're gonna make a pie with it. And I was thinking specifically about apple strudel. And I know that you know, like countries like Germany or Austria, they have their own sort of like versions. It's not apple pie specifically, but they do sort of have sort of like the thing, like the base, you know, it's just like a pastry with some cooked apple. So of course, like I said, it exists in other cultures. So what it's, the base, obviously, the thing that each culture is going to give it like their own twist, and it's going to be different depending on like where you have it and the shape and all of that. But at its core, it's like an apple pie, or it's just dough and apples and sweet apples, so makes sense. And the pumpkin, well, that sort of like surprised me a little bit, because it's so like a Thanksgiving thing, but it's true because the pilgrims. So it's like, yeah, sure, of course it's gonna be like, it's not, if you think about it again, it's not like that weird. It's like, yeah, it makes sense. But it shocked me, and I know that these are only like 6 things, but I'm sure there's more. But like again, there's a bunch of British things that are American, and a lot of like American things that are actually like British, because again, even though like they have a bit of a competition, at the end of the day, like they're not that different. They have a lot of similarities, and probably I would venture to say they probably have like more similarities than differences, especially if you compare them with other countries in the world. Like, of course they're gonna be similar. Like, why wouldn't they? One conquered the other, so of course they're gonna be similar. Just like it's gonna have like an influence in your culture, and that culture is gonna influence your culture as well. So it's sort of like a nice exchange of things happening there. And it's good, because I think that only makes both cultures richer in a way, because it enriches the culture, and it goes both sides, So it's actually good, but it was a bit it came as a shock, but then if you think about it, it's like, what, this actually makes sense if you think about it. But I love this guy. He's hilarious. And yeah, I love the fact that he's also like, he's British, but he lives in the US and has lived in the US for a bunch of years, and his wife is also, I'm guessing, yeah, I think his wife is also American, so he's gonna like see both sides. So he's like, I'm neutral here. So I'm a neutral observant. So he's really funny. But yeah, I love this, and hopefully you did as well, and I'll see you next time. Bye.